for men, it's like, stop taking things personally. Like, you're a grown man. Why are you like, oh, my 4-year-old did? It's a 4-year-old. And what are you doing with like, look, we're having fun with this, but I do that with men of like, wait, so you expect your teenager to wake up and say, Dad, you're filled with wisdom. Could you share that with me today? Like, what are you expecting? They're going to push back.
Yeah.
And instead of taking it personally, give them your wisdom because they need it, but don't fight them all the time over these dumb things.
Welcome back to the Raising Men podcast. We talk a lot on this show about the fact that we're navigating uncharted territory. Our world is sending our sons incredibly confusing messages about identity, strength, and what it actually means to be a man. Today's guest has spent 2 decades helping over 1 million parents stop the power struggles and start building a roadmap for their children. He's the founder of Celebrate Calm and the host of the Calm Parenting podcast. He's known for his raw honesty and his practical scripts that actually work in the heat of the moment. Kirk Martin, welcome to Raising Men.
Dude, I'm so psyched to be here.
I'm so psyched to have you. It is just an absolute pleasure. And let's get right into it. Now, I've heard you say that the traits that make a child difficult, like things like defiance or arguing like an attorney, are the same traits that make them successful leaders and entrepreneurs as adults. And that's absolutely what my mom used to say about me. You're going to be an amazing lawyer someday, which I never was, because man, would I argue about anything, and my kids have inherited that from me. But how can the parents of boys reframe that stubbornness as conviction that we want them to have as men?
I mean, you have to consciously look at that child. Like, I remember our son, Casey, very strong-willed, came out of the womb with boxing gloves on. And I just remember at one point, I made a shift from like, why do you always have to argue with me? Can't you just listen to me? And then I looked at him one day. I remember where I was. We were living in Nashville, and I said, Casey, you know what? I need to apologize, because here's what I've overlooked. You're really good at arguing, and what that tells me is this. You can see patterns in things. That's why you're so good with Legos, you're good at chess and checkers, and you're good at arguing, because you recognize the pattern in an argument. You know what I'm going to say before I even say it. You're really good at understanding human nature, and that's why you're so good at pushing buttons. You're also really good when there's an argument. You have to listen, and then you have to think critically and tear apart my arguments, which you do really well. And then you have to communicate persuasively and be persistent. You are all of those things, and that will serve you well. And I remember he looked at me like, "What? Like, why aren't you yelling at me?" And I was like, because I just realized there's a lot of skills within arguing, and we've wasted the first 10 or 12 years of your life just arguing. I want to help you take those, channel those skills into something that's more practical and in a way that actually will advance you in life. You just have to reframe it in your mind from like, for men, it's like, stop taking things personally. Like, you're a grown man. Why are you like, oh, my 4-year-old did? It's a 4-year-old. And what are you doing with like, look, we're having fun with this, but I do that with men of like, wait, so you expect your teenager to wake up and say, Dad, you're filled with wisdom. Could you share that with me today? Like, what are you expecting? They're going to push back. And instead of taking it personally, give them your wisdom because they need it, but don't fight them all the time over these dumb things.
Yeah. And by the way, that skill of asking the question and pushing back on authority and not accepting the answer just because it's coming from somebody who, outranks them, that is a tremendously important skill. It was what will keep them as an individual. It was what will allow them to succeed in life. And so, man, we got to cultivate it, even though it's maddening and even though it presses your buttons and these guys these guys really, really know how to make you mad. We gotta cultivate that somehow.
Yeah, because I would reframe it as it's a competitive advantage,
Mhm.
and you can put boundaries on it, right? Like, I remember sometimes when Casey would come after me pretty hard, and I'd say, "Hey, that's not gonna work for you. I
Yeah.
know what you want, so why don't you rephrase that?" Right? Because this will just cause you to lose your driver's license or your video games.
Yeah.
But I'm good with the spirit behind it, or I'd say, "Hey, let me show you how to disagree with me respectfully."
Yeah.
And so it's training them for, "Hey, here are certain areas in life, times where you just do what the man wants because you're trying to get to something larger. And
Yeah.
here are the times where you say, no, that's stupid. That's arbitrary."
Mhm.
Right? Even with school, I told him, it was like, look, most of what you're learning is arbitrary. You don't need this in life, but you want the piece of paper. So you're smart enough to figure out what the teacher really wants.
Yeah.
So figure
Teach
out
them.
to give them the minimal work that you need to do to get that done. But I want you spending your other energy on your ideas, developing leadership, resilience, doing really hard things in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an experience about, 3 weeks ago now with my boy. He got sent home from school, and he was sent home from school because he got in a fight with a girl in his class, and he ended up kind of holding her up against a fence, and they were fighting, and he did that, well, so I ended up asking him about it, and he told me the story. And she was messing with him, like, she was trying to get him mad, and it worked, and he felt bad that he got mad, and she ended they're actually really good friends, and she ended up feeling bad that he got in so much trouble over it, and, it was really blown out of proportion by the school, and it was blown out of proportion because he was a boy and she was a girl, and it was blown out of proportion because he's really big.
Yeah.
He's a first grader, and he looks like a fifth grader.
Yeah.
And so it freaked the teachers out.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I listened to the story and I said, listen, man, it's not fair. But the fact is that you're a big kid. You're you're the size of a much, much older kid. And so people see you and they see you reacting in a way that's physical towards somebody and they're much smaller than you. And especially if it's a girl,
Right.
they're they're gonna get scared in a way they wouldn't get scared if she did that to you,
Right.
or if a smaller boy did that to you or somebody else.
Right.
And it's not fair, and it's not right, but it's reality. And you're just gonna have to figure out and it's gonna make you stronger because you're gonna be able to figure out this stuff faster and better than other people are gonna have to, but you're gonna have to do it. And it worked. We ended up having a really nice day. He helped me with my work that day, and, so because he wasn't allowed to, watch his tablet all day because, this is supposed to be a discipline, and, but we had a really great day and, I mean, he had a different perspective on it.
See, I like what you're doing there because you're just being honest
Yeah.
and you're reading the situation saying, this is reality. And I love the phrase, I believe you're capable of adapting yourself to different reality. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was like, that's great. And then he was like, okay. So then, in the future, you can kind of problem solve of like, okay, what happens if or when other kids push your buttons?
Yeah.
How are you gonna react to it? How are you gonna respond?
Yeah.
So I love that you did that. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, one of your superpowers, is generating scripts, right, for dealing with particular behaviors. And, I found, like, there is nobody in my entire life who's ever been able to push my buttons the way that my boy is. I'm a really, really even-keeled guy, and I just don't get angry very fast, and then this, like, little 18-month-old boy comes out, and he can figure out how to make me more angry more quickly than anybody in my entire life. And I really admire this concept of how do we I have this concept of the Conan the Barbarian brain, the amygdala versus the Sherlock Holmes brain, the prefrontal cortex.
Good.
And you want to stay in the Sherlock Holmes brain. And your scripts are a way to do that. They're a way of training your Conan the Barbarian brain to get yourself up to your Sherlock Holmes brain. Let's talk more about that.
So I like that a lot because I like the Sherlock Holmes thing is the curiosity piece,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, I think for most men, this is true. Our goal, like my wife's goal, mom is like, well, I want my kids to feel loved.
Right.
And for us as men, it's like, well, I want my son not to make the same stupid mistakes I made so he can crush it in life, right?
Yeah.
And then because that makes me feel good, he's going to be successful. And that's a good thing to want. And so I think our motives in that are very noble, but then we sabotage it all the time because we're so reactive, right? And then our kids
Yeah.
are like, hey, you're supposed to be my hero, dad, but you lose it in traffic or you get upset at me. So I think part of it is not taking it personally, realizing that this is normal and that, what switched for me was when I finally realized it's not my job to control other human beings because I was trying to control Casey because he was so difficult. Like, why can't you
Yeah.
just put your shoes on? Why is everything so difficult? And when I realized the only person I can control in life is myself,
Yeah.
and the quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. And so the two things I started with in a very practical way were body posture. Because I was typical like type A guy, walk into a room, how many times have I told you don't talk to your mother like that? Why are there Legos all over the floor? Creates a defensive response, escalates things.
Yeah.
So I began sitting down because when I sit, I slow my world down and then I problem solve. And I think one of the things that's really great for guys or that gives us an advantage in parenting is we tend to be really good at this stuff at the office, like in our work. So things are going wrong at the office, sales are down. We're not like, sales are down. If you guys don't sell more, you're fired. But that's
Yeah.
kind
I
of what
mean,
we
some
do at
people
home.
are, but they're not. That's not the good people aren't.
Yeah, the good
The
leaders
effective
aren't,
people
right?
are. Yeah.
So at work, like the good leader is like, okay, let's sit down. Why are sales down? Do we have competition? Is our pricing off? Let's problem solve, come up with an action plan. So when I walk through the door, sometimes as men, all of that leaves and it's like, there's Legos on the floor and you can't do this. So I always ask men, like, go into your home for a couple days and just treat your kids almost like they're your colleagues at work or a
Right.
young person you're mentoring at work.
Right.
Because at the office, if someone like a young guy messes up, you're not like, you know what, if you don't start doing it right, you're fired. You can do that.
Yeah.
But instead you say, hey, you have a lot of promise. I've seen your work. That last project that you did, not up to standard. So why don't you come, let's go for a walk, let's talk it through, and I'll show you how to do it better.
Yeah.
So that model with your child when they're messing up instead of like, why do you do that? You keep doing that, you lose your stuff. That's not really discipline. That's just flailing,
Yeah.
right? That's just like, I'm frustrated because you're being inconvenient. You're making life harder for me. So instead I go into, okay, so I get that. You stayed up late last night to sneak your iPad or sneak food. Pretty common with our kids. Instead of like, why would you do that? It's like, well, start to think, why would you do that? Well,
Right.
it's freaking fun,
Yeah.
right?
I know the reason why it would do that.
It's a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
They're pattern seers, so he knows like, and if you really go in with that Sherlock Holmes, which I love, which my favorite phrase is, hey, I'm curious. Like,
Mm.
of course, you would sneak stuff in the middle of the night. What boy doesn't want to do that? Like, stop shaming kids for stuff that you and I did when we were young. Like,
Right.
so you're not excusing it. Hey, of course you would do that. I'm just curious. What did you get out of that? And when you listen to them or lead them in it, okay, so you get bored, so you like your brain stimulated, you like a challenge. Well, you're good at seeing patterns. You know, when I go to bed, that I get up one time to pee like an hour after I go to bed, but then I'm asleep. So you waited for that time to sneak down the stairs. You had set it up before. I had locks on the cabinets, but you learned how to, you know, open up the lock. Why? Because you're a really good thinker.
Yeah. Can
And
we
then
appreciate the ingenuity here for a
yes,
moment?
look, there's ingenuity there, there's planning, and then you watch CSI, so you know to wipe down the counters with alcohol so I can't see your fingerprints. You've disabled our cameras because you know how to go. But, right, so you go through that and you're like, "Okay, so I see a lot of great stuff there." If you continue to do that, you're just gonna lose stuff. Like, it just doesn't work,
Yeah.
but I bet we could brainstorm 3 different ways to get all those needs met in positive ways of like, you're like a born entrepreneur. So rather than wasting all your energy doing something that's going to cause you to lose stuff, why don't we start your own little business?
Right. Yeah.
And you can make
That's
money.
exactly what I was thinking. Let's do a YouTube channel, or let's sell something online, or
Yes.
yeah.
Like, and that's discipline because now you're teaching. Like, especially with the ADD strong-willed kids,
Mhm.
what I wanted to teach my son is, look, you have a need for intensity and for brain stimulation, and you're either going to get that met, and let's be honest, through porn, through gambling, through cheating on girls, because those are all rushes that men from the beginning of time have effed up their lives that way, right?
Yeah.
So that's the negative way. Or if you've got a big heart, service projects. You're an entrepreneur starting your own business. Then you get to control stuff. You make money, you give it away. So I'm teaching them from a young age, this is what you need, and you can either go this path or I can show you this path. And
Mhm.
now they can make a choice rather than be like many of us who didn't realize this till we were like 35 and we were hooked on certain things because
Yeah.
that was just stimulating our brains.
Right. Yeah, that's such a healthy way to look at it. When I was kind of growing up, that's when ADD first started becoming a thing, and it was almost like, you get this diagnosis and, "Oh, you're falling behind in school because you're broken." That
Mhm.
was the message that it felt like they were getting sent. But
Right.
I love the way that you reframe it. And in fact, I think that sort of victim mentality has gotten worse, not better over time.
Mhm.
But even though we understand these mechanisms a lot better, and it's just neurodiversity, it's not really, I mean, you're not broken. You're just not wired in a way that the traditional school system expects you to be and wants you to be. And so you have to figure that out. You're gonna have to figure out how to thrive. But and this is what I love about your message is that that's not something that's broken. That is a unique capability that you have that you can leverage. You're just going to have to figure out how that fits into the world and make it so that it is a superpower of yours as opposed to this, like, I don't know, weakness or something.
Right. So that was kind of the talk I had with Casey when he was in that 10, 11, 12 range. And by the way, I had fun with it. And I was like, look, the other kids should be diagnosed with like energy deficiency
Yeah,
disorder,
exactly.
right? Like, why are they like compliance disorder? Like, how's that going to serve you
Compliance
in
disorder.
life?
That's the perfect way to put it.
Right? Like,
Sheep syndrome.
well, serious. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, right? Like, so you're rewarding kids for literally sitting still all day, not
Yeah.
questioning anyone, just memorizing information on a test that they're going to forget, as
It's
if
unnatural.
that's unnatural.
Yes.
So the talk with Casey was, hey, look, you've got a natural weakness, which is you struggle with short-term memory.
Yeah.
Well, in order to do well in school, you really have to have good short-term memory to memorize information for a test. So school's going to be harder. Now, the good side of that is people who usually struggle with short-term memory have better critical thinking skills. They're more visionary. They can see context. Now that's what companies pay for.
Yes.
Companies don't pay people a lot of money just to carry out tasks. I can
That's
get
right.
anybody to do that. What I need and what companies will need is someone who can do this. In a fast moving environment, they can think, they can analyze a lot of data, and they can prioritize and they can make decisions. Following directions is not that great of a skill. Making decisions means, okay, I have to weigh a lot of data, I have to analyze risk reward, and then I have to have the courage to possibly fail by making a decision. And what I want our kids to know is, yeah, school's just going to be tougher for you, but that doesn't mean you're dumb. It's just a lot of it is arbitrary. But you only spend like the first, what, from age 4 to 22 in school?
Yeah.
But the rest of your life is spent in the adult world that is going to value all these other skills. And I would encourage parents with this who are listening. Our son is 32 now. He works a little bit with me, but he has a job. He's actually where your brother lives. On the other side of the pass.
Nice.
All of the qualities that he got in trouble for at school are the very qualities that got him promoted very quickly, because here's what his bosses know. They give him an objective, and they don't have to worry about it. He just says, got it, I'll take care of it, I can problem solve, I can lead a team, I'm persuasive, I'll get it done for you.
Yeah.
But that's not sitting still and memorizing information. And what happens to a lot of our kids that are neurodivergent is they feel like, to your point, I'm less than, I'm slower, I'm not as smart. And once you crush a child's confidence, it's really hard to get it back. So I'm not denying either, hey, you've got some weaknesses, just like every
Just like
other
everybody in the
person on the
planet.
planet.
Yeah.
Yes, it's that's why I go back sometimes with like, why don't we label them with compliance disorder and energy deficiency
Yeah.
disorder, or you have risk aversion disorder? Well, the wealthiest people in the world are risk takers,
Yeah.
and boys especially are made to take risks.
Right.
And so why, like in my perfect world, I would be a teacher and talk to the compliant good kids in class and be like, congratulations, guys. Like you're gonna crush it for 12 years in school, and everybody's going to love you. And then you're gonna get out in the real world, and most of these skills aren't going to transfer, and you're probably going to be working for the ADD kids who were in trouble on my class, because they're going to start their own business and they're going to need rule followers to carry out their vision. Like,
Mhm.
I'm being a little facetious, but that's also largely true.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I
Yeah.
like reframing for our kids and for teachers and for parents, so you don't get sucked into, what are we going to do with this child? How's he going to succeed?
Yeah. It's so that what comes to mind there is that if you're one of the standard compliant good kids, then that is going to be a nice smooth groove for you.
Mhm.
You're going to be fine. That's great. You're going to do great in school. But to succeed in the real world, you need that capability. You need to understand where the grooves are, and you need to be able to stay in your lane when that's required of you. But you also need this other thing. You need to be able to have this grand vision. You need the thing that the neurodivergent kids are coming out of the box with.
Right.
And so if you're one of the neurodivergent kids, you have been given a gift, which is that you're going to be forced to develop both skills, because
Yeah.
school is going to pound that into you. And in order just to graduate, you're going to have to figure out how that lane thing works. But you also naturally have this other skill. These other poor guys, they've got the groove thing down, and so they're not going to have a tough time learning that, but they will never learn this other thing. And that means they're always going to be working for other people. They're always going to, for the most part. And
Yeah.
it's a real gift in that respect.
Yeah. And look, there's part of it is like the kids who just naturally do well. I mean, many of them are going to they're going to be doctors and attorneys and have great lives. And like
Right.
it's smoother and easier. I
Yeah.
think in the end, probably less fulfilling than someone who has a vision and carries that out.
Yeah.
But one of the, examples I give is, so 2 kids come home from school. One kid does the worksheet as expected, and then goes in the next day, and then the teacher is like, "Oh, you're so good at doing homework. Thanks for doing that. It's great." That's fine. But then some of us have kids, especially boys, who are like, "I don't wanna do the stupid homework sheet," but they'll be in the other room, like, building a robot or
Right.
playing with their Legos, and think what they're doing. They get a vision in their brain. They're picturing something using their imagination that I want to build. Then they have to decide and make choices. Okay, it's a little top heavy, so I have to take that off. Like, there's a lot of thinking that goes into that. They go into school the next day. Where's your homework? Well, I didn't do it. Okay, you're a bad kid. You don't follow directions. I know, but I built a freaking robot. Right.
Right.
And so I'm not saying don't have your kids do homework,
Yeah.
but it's really important to teach your kids, like, hey, that worksheet for, say, like my wife just is really good at school stuff. I'm like, but that didn't stretch you at all. That
Yeah.
wasn't hard. In fact, that was doing homework was comforting for you. You were good at that. If your homework had been create something from scratch and risk failure, you would have been the one who failed
Mhm.
and did right. Like, I'm saying the same thing as you.
Yeah.
I think our kids, but they need to know that, hey, you're going to be good in the real world. School's going to be tougher. But to your point, you're going to develop both sides that you can use.
Yeah. Yeah. That is such a, I mean, this reframing is a superpower, right? It should be a reflex to think about things. How is this an asset? How is this problem? I used to have a business mentor that used to tell me that your biggest problem is also your biggest opportunity, and vice versa.
Mhm.
And that's a way to think about it, and it's that way. It's that way for the kids too.
Yeah. I mean, I think I probably spend my whole life reframing, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a thing out now, like kids with PDA, pathological demand avoidance.
Right.
Well, it's a horribly it's a horrible label, because the truth is they don't avoid demands. They reject external demands
Mhm.
because they want to carry out the internal demands.
Yeah.
So they have a superpower that says, I can prioritize so much of what you're asking me to do, mom, dad, and teachers, isn't important. And so, but we miss that because we fall into that trap of, well, you have to do this. And I'm at the point in my life where, like, no, you actually don't have to do it. Like, I know our anxiety as parents of like, well, they have to learn. No, they could be successful and pay someone to make them meals, right?
Yeah.
Although most of the neurodivergent people that I know are actually really good cooks, and your ADD kids, if you give them an option, because what are they doing? They're taking all these ingredients
Right.
and they're creating order out of it. They're not going to follow directions and they're not going to clean up. But then there's something tangible they get from creating. And
Yeah.
so, like our son, we just went over to his house the other night. He's like the best cook I know.
No kidding.
He's an ADD kid. And so, and he does know how to clean up now, which is nice. But, um, but yeah, look at your kids in a different way. Maybe reframe your role
Yeah.
from like the old, like, well, my job is just to tell them to behave. And if they don't, they get punished, to, no, I'm a giver of wisdom. I've got a lifetime of wisdom. And so instead of reacting and getting upset that my child got in trouble, it's like, I always tell men, it's like, you were a dopey 8-year-old once. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and you were a dopey 14-year-old. It's like they're figuring life out for the first time. So if your child is impulsive and doesn't always listen, okay, it's not the end of the world. Like, don't react to it. Just practice impulse control with them.
Yeah. I think one of the reflexes that I had early on, especially, was that this behavior, this pushback, it was like a challenge to my
Oh,
authority. And my I view myself as in a particular way, and part of the reason why it pushed my buttons so hard and it made me so mad is because I would connect the dots out into the future, and where that led, he's a criminal and he's in jail and I look like the worst dad in the world. And at the end of the story, that's what he's telling me. Him arguing with me is him communicating to me that you're a bad dad. And I don't want to feel like a bad dad. And so I get mad. And it's like, okay, first of all, he's just reacting, right? He doesn't have a Sherlock brain at all. He only has his Conan the Barbarian brain. And so he's just doing what feels right. And so, first of all, that behavior isn't going to continue in the future forever. He will eventually have a prefrontal cortex that helps him, strategize. And then, second of all, like, this isn't about you. This isn't about your authority. This isn't about what you look like as a dad. This is about giving him the skills and capabilities to thrive in the world. And that's a marathon. You do that by inches. And so what can I do in this moment to help move that ball forward another inch? And at the end of the story for me, for the most part, it came down to staying calm and taking a beat.
Yeah, control. Yeah, that was mine. I mean, my dad was career military, so it was like, yes, sir, yes, sir. Like,
Oh my
so
goodness.
that is deep inside of you, and then you take as like he's challenging my authority. What I found is most of these kids are not uh, challenging your authority. They're not rejecting it. They're rejecting your anxiety and your control issues.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you one example of like calming a kid down. So common situation, Casey would be in the kitchen yelling at my wife. Well, then I come in as the guy's like, hey, how many times have I told you you don't talk to your mother like that?
Yeah,
Nothing
you're
really
screaming
wrong.
at him, right? Don't yell at people.
Yeah. Well, I remember one time I said, you need to calm down. And he said, you know what? You're 35. Apparently you haven't mastered that skill. Like he was a smart
Touche, my
mouthful.
friend.
I know. He was right. At the time, I didn't take it that well.
Of course
But
not.
it was true. But it was true.
Yeah.
So I walk in, and so I began to escalate, and then he would come back with some, keep it up, young man. You already lost your video games 1 week. You want to make it 4? And the strong-willed child is like, yeah, just take them away. Because they'll call your bluff on that. Because we as guys often yell out consequences we can't keep.
That's right.
Right? Like, yeah, we're just going to take it away for a month, and I'm going to go away on a business trip, so my wife has to enforce it. And so he would go stomping off up to his room, slam his door, because he knew that was a trigger, right? You don't have to respect me, but you're going to respect my door. I worked hard to pay for that door. So then I would come downstairs and think, I just stood up for my wife. And she was thinking, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
You just created an emotional mess. I now have to go up to our son's bedroom and let him know your father doesn't hate you. He just has some unresolved dad issues, right? And she had to clean up the mess. And so let me give you this quick formulation for calming kids down.
Yeah.
The first thing you do is not try to calm them down. It's give them something they're in control of. Because the reason all of us react is a perceived loss of control. And so we react. So with my son sometimes, and I did this with a family, the child loves fishing. So you're getting in this combustible situation. I first control myself and realize if I come in like this, I'm pouring fuel on the fire, it gets worse.
Yeah.
So body posture, sitting down, tone of voice for men, this is easy. Even matter-of-fact tone. I don't do that mom tone. Well, buddy, I can tell you're really upset. That's infuriating to kids. So if your wives are doing that, have them listen to the podcast because I go through that please stop with that sing-songy mommy voice where we talk about identifying that infuriates kids. So, and then if I come in, you know what, you better stop it right now. Where your child knows right away, my dad is really amped up. If I just push him a little, he's going to lose it. Even matter-of-fact tone, it's a very business-like tone. Really important. Giving the child something they're in control of. Hey, I just remembered this weekend we're going fishing. If you could go to the garage and organize the fishing lures, oh man, that would really help me out. So now the child is doing something, organizing something with their hands. That's calming. Third thing, motion changes emotion. movement. So I come in the kitchen and say, hey, Case, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, and I'd hold up a football. I'm going in the backyard when you're ready. If you want to play catch, I'll help you out with this. Hey, Case, I'm going to dump some Legos out in the living room. When you're ready, come in. We'll build a spaceship. So there's an invitation instead of go to your room away from me, which communicates I can't handle you when you're at your worst, so I have to send you away from me. And we don't want to do that as guys. What
Yeah.
I want is when you're at your worst, oh, I can handle it. Come outside. Come sit on the floor. In that is some movement, some motion. Guys, it can be, hey, you know what? I just remembered I forgot something from the store. You want to run up to the store? Hey, along the way, we'll stop and grab a couple tacos. That is fantastic because now you're next to your child and you're not giving eye contact. That is very, very calming. And then the final thing I would mention is intensity. And this is a really cool thing with really intense kids. So kid comes home from school, builds a paper airplane, flies it. It doesn't fly right. The neurotypical kids are like, oh, darn, it didn't work. I'll build another one. The intense kids are like, stupid airplane. I hate this airplane. I'm stupid. And all good parents come in, oh, buddy, that was a good airplane. And your child's like, duh. If it were a good airplane, it would have flown right.
Yeah.
So instead, the intensity is this. Oh, man, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. Of course you're frustrated. You'd been thinking of building that airplane all day long. You put time into it, doesn't fly right. Oh, I'd be PO'd too.
Yeah.
There is something extremely calming about that of like, yeah, right? Now, what I didn't say is, so go ahead and punch a hole in the wall or hit
Right.
your sister. I just said you should be frustrated. Listen, I've got to go to the bathroom when I get back. I'll problem solve and we'll fix this.
Yeah.
So I gave the child some space because when a kid's upset, when I'm upset, I don't want people looking at me because I'm a little bit embarrassed that I got that upset.
Right.
So I just did this in a podcast where I got upset because I had recorded a podcast because I just record my own. And then I went to load it and it didn't record. So my
Oh,
wife heard some language coming from the room that wasn't, oh, darn, I guess I get to do it again. So I'm dropping the F-bomb in here. And she came in and she said, instead of like, oh, honey, you're so good at it. It's not a big deal. I would have been like, screw you. So instead she said, oh, man, that was a good take. Yeah, that sucks when that happens. And then like 2 minutes later, she said, hey, when you get a chance, we could use more kindling and firewood. And I was like, you just celebrate calmed me, right? Because she knew if I go outside and split wood, that is so satisfying that I won't throw things, right? So like that.
she's using your own strategies against you, man. And
Of
they
course.
work. That's
We use it all
amazing.
the time. We're like, did you just celebrate calm me? And I was like, yes, because it's effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it was one of the unlocks for me in doing this whole project has been the realization that in both of my kids, it feels like they really only want one of two things or both of two things. There's this tension they have between connection and independence.
Yeah.
And when they feel like they have a lot of connection, it feels like they want a lot more independence and vice versa.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they will behave when they want one thing, they will behave in the way that gets them the opposite of that one thing. So they want connection. And so they'll say, I hate you, get away from me. And like, okay, if you want connection, then don't tell me that. I'm going to leave and then you're not going to have any more connection. It's the weirdest thing, but that's what they do. And once I realized that, I started modeling their behavior in my mind as, okay, what are they seeking here? And how can I give that to them in a way that is consistent with our values as opposed to just responding to you pouting or you whining or whatever. And your mechanism or your script to say, here, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to dump out the Legos. Meet me over here when you're ready is such the perfect way to get your own distance from the situation. Because if you in my experience, if I stay in that situation, I'm going to continue getting
Yeah.
mad, and then I'm going to get dysregulated, and then it's going to fall apart. So I need to get some distance, but I need to get some distance in a way that doesn't erode our connection. And what your script about pouring out the Legos and say, when you're ready, come over here and we'll build a spaceship is the perfect way to do that, because I'm offering the connection. We can have the connection, but implied in that is, but we need to have things calm and we're going to change our posture. We're going to change our location. We're going to change our entire energy in a way that enables that. Man, do I love that.
Yeah, and it's, you know what I like? I like because it's guy friendly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, like, the more mom female things are like, "Well, let's just have long talks."
Right.
I don't like long talks. So
Yeah.
mine was like, "Hey, you wanna grab some chips? I'll grab some salsa, meet you out on the deck." Well, that's quick and easy. We're eating now. My feet are up. Like, it just changes the dynamic from, you're right. If I stayed in the kitchen, you know what? We need to have a talk about your attitude, young man. Like, when has that in the history of mankind ever worked? Like,
Would it work with
well,
you now? Like literally right
yeah.
now, if somebody did that to you, would you respond well to it? And
No,
yeah,
and so
exactly.
so I like the invitation. I do like the words, "Hey, when you're ready," because it gives them a sense of ownership and control.
Yeah.
Because when your child comes and walks outside to play catch or walks into the living room and sits down, your child has just humbled himself or herself. Because that is humbling to walk into that room after, "I just yelled at mom.
Yeah.
I just called you a jerk." That's humility, but there's also trust. I'm trusting that when I come follow you or get in the car to go get tacos, that you're not just going to ream me, but you're going to help me. And I will tell you, the beauty of this is that, like, Casey's 32 now. My Some of my most meaningful parts in life are when he texts me and says, "Hey dad, can I ask you about something?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Yes, this is what I've lived for."
Absolutely. No question.
And when he wants, like, this summer, because I'm getting older and I can still kick his butt sometimes in hiking, not really, but I like to think that.
Sure.
He planned a 2-week overseas hiking trip for us, just the 2 of us. And I was like, "Okay, cool. My son wants to spend 2 weeks with me hiking, like, all that time paid off."
Right.
That's pretty cool. And I
Nice.
want the men to know, if I can add one thing, it's not about being weak. You're not letting them get away with things. You're not being a pushover. Because I can say when he comes with attitude, "Look, that's not gonna work." I can tell you, "You're looking for my intensity. It's not gonna work this way, but if you wanna go play catch, if you wanna build in the basement, if you wanna play guitar, I'm cool with that." So there's no part of this is, because men always worry about being weak.
Yeah.
And, like, that whole authority thing, it's like, I don't have to prove my authority. Like, there's never been a doubt, even with Casey being 32, I'm still dad. Like,
Okay.
that's never been in doubt with your kids, and
Yeah.
it actually ruins your authority if you're always trying to use it or prove it.
That's
It's
right. If you
better
have to prove your authority, you don't
you
have
don't
it.
have it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, my dad was always, "You're going to respect me." And I was like, "Well, I just lost respect for you."
Right. Yeah. We've just set the table where I don't respect you and I
Yeah.
probably never will.
I just fear you because 'cause you're
Yeah.
really
That's right.
scary. Yeah.
That's right. Wow. Yeah. I love that. Now, you know, you mentioned um modeling behavior and one of the in fact the most effective way that we can influence our boys' behavior is to model the kind of behavior that we're looking at or that we want to do ourselves. And so they're looking to us to try and figure out and see what a fit or excellent man looks like. If you had to pick one principle, and I love to finish these discussions up by asking this question. If you had to pick one principle for how we model excellent masculinity, not through what we say, but what we do and how we carry ourselves and handle our own struggles. What would that principle be?
I think it's a character trait. I'd say humility. Because
Hmm.
humility is confidence. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to push anything. I take the humble route. I think it's one thing that Casey has followed. Like, I watch him with his peers, with people that work for him, and he's a tall guy with a kind of a, I wouldn't say aggressive manner, but Casey is a big personality.
Yeah.
But when I go over and I see him working and I hear, like, people, I'm like, "You nailed the humility part." I just think it's humility is leadership, humility is listening, humility is problem solving, humility is being gracious toward people, because it takes confidence too, right?
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I don't know if that's the right answer,
I
what
think
you were
that's a perfect
looking for,
answer. I think
but
that's absolutely perfect.
yeah.
Kirk, I want to thank you so much for being here today with sharing your wisdom. You have given us more than just parenting advice. You've given us a way of looking in the mirror um, and really helping our mission in helping our boys thrive. I really appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate what you're doing, like, this focus with men and their sons is so needed, and you have learned so much, like, on your own. Like, you've given your kids the greatest gift. You broke generational patterns, and now they're not going to have to, I always tell my son, "You're not gonna have to, uh, worry about being a jerk as much as I did," right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
so
you'll have whatever your own challenges are, but
you
hopefully
have
they'll
your
be
own
higher level
challenges.
challenges
Higher level,
than
they're
some of the
starting at a different
yeah.
starting point. So, anyway, I appreciate what you're doing, so if we can ever help, just let us know.
That's kind of you to say. Thank you so much. And if you found today's episode helpful, please share it with another parent who might be feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of their son. You can find all the scripts and the resources Kirk has at his disposal and everything that he's mentioned in the show notes or at raising.men. Until next time, remember, you are a great parent. Raising Men is produced by Phil Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.